So welcome to our April version of the Twin Cities Tableau user group. We did have high hopes that this might have, could have, should have been a hybrid meeting, but it was a struggle to find a place that would have us for free. So we're gonna try for June. Maybe somewhere that's got a little bit better outdoor space, a brewery maybe, who knows? Because our May event is we're joining forces with a couple other tugs, and that will be virtual. So, and I'll get into that in just a moment here. Start my
So if you own a brewery, let us know.
Yeah, if you own a brewery, please do let me know for many reasons. Okay, so today you get me. I'm going to show you guys some work that I've been doing in Tableau Prep on a volunteer basis to do some data validation for a really cool cause. And then Katrina has so graciously volunteered to jump in at literally the last minute to give us an overview of the different types of Tableau certifications that I think that are offered, not just the ones that she has, but all the ones that are offered.
Yep.
And then we'll get into some best thing I learned, group therapy, if we have time, and kind of go from there. So, as always, here are just a handful of cherry-picked events that I'd like to share with you. There's a Thinkful webinar that's covering the data science tools of the trade on April 27th. Women Who Code Hack Night on May 12th. The Power BI meetup also on May 12th. I think that's another one that is going to be in person. They meet at the Bald Man Brewery in Egan, and I actually like crept on it last time they met. I had just picked my kids up from school, so here's me and my 6 and my 8-year-old. I'm walking them into a brewery at like 3:30 p.m. And we just kind of peeked, and because I wanted to see how they had set things up to see if it was something that we might be able to copy, but they didn't have any presenters. Like there was no content. It was really just like a bunch of dudes just hanging out talking about I don't know what. I didn't get close enough to hear. So that didn't jump out at me as an option for us. But they are meeting again on May 12th. So if that's something that you can make and it's of interest to you, that is available. As I mentioned, our next tug is going to be on May 20th. And that is we're calling it a super tug, and it's a whole, I think there's like 5 or 6 different tugs across the country that are joining forces to do a sort of a virtual session with Tableau's chief product officer, I'm pretty sure, Francois Agenstadt. It's sort of like a quasi open Q&A, and I say quasi because he's not really just going to take any questions that people ask. They're going to be pre-screened and vetted. So if you have a specific question to ask Francois, we have until May 1st, I believe, to submit those either in writing or you can record yourself asking a question. But either send them directly to me or you can send it to the Twin Cities tug at gmail.com, and that will go to all of us. So just remember that. If you have a question for Francois Agenstadt, write it, record it, and send it to one of us somehow before May 1st. And then, of course, the SysTech conference is a little less than one month away, and we are still selling just a small handful of in-person tickets that we have left, and we do have virtual ticket options available. So check that out. The prices are super reasonable. It's $125 for in-person and $50 for virtual for a whole bunch of awesome content. Okay, so anybody else have any events, job postings, anything that they want to share with this community? Now is your chance to unmute yourself and holla.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cruz with Minneapolis.
Hi, Rachel.
I just wanted to say that the Minneapolis police are currently hiring for a crime analyst position, and it's the job I used to have, and they're looking for someone with Tableau and like Cognos skills basically to fill that. You can go on the Minneapolis police website to find it.
Cool. Thanks, Rachel. So you're trying to tell people on a job that you left?
Yeah, well, I mean, I did get promoted, so it's fine.
Okay, good.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
So yeah, they're just trying to fill my old position, and the coworkers there are really cool, and I like them a lot, and I think it's a pretty fun job.
Awesome. If you have a link, you could chat it in the chat.
Yeah, link to our job sites don't really work because they go through NeoGov. So
Okay.
You'll just have to search on either the Minneapolis website or governmentjobs.com.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? News to share? Okay, we will move on. Let's sneak in to get to know a member or two. If you would like to volunteer, you can either just unmute yourself and start answering, all of these questions, or I will pick someone from the participation list. Any brave volunteers? Okay. Let's pick, how about Jessica Melee? So sorry if I just ruined your last name. Jessica, are you there?
Hi, sorry, I was doing something else while I was listening to you guys. Trying to multitask here, you know.
I get it. Well, sorry to put you on the spot. Would you like to answer these questions?
Sure, I'll answer them as best as I can. So my name is Jessica Mealy, and I work for the University of Minnesota Foundation. My title is Senior Research Analyst, and how we use Tableau in our area is we do a lot of analyzing of our donor data that we have in our database. It's a proprietary database that the foundation has built itself. And I've been using Tableau for, gosh, I want to say about 4 years, maybe 5. Yeah, about 5. And I'm not very good at it at all. I'm constantly struggling with some of the most simple things, and having to ask my colleagues, hey, how do you do this? And they're like, oh, do it this way. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I should have remembered that from Tableau class day 1, So I'm just, trying really hard to get better at Tableau, and learning some new tips and tricks and that kind of thing, which these Tableau user groups have been helpful with that. So.
Awesome.
Did I answer it okay?
Yes, it's not a test. There are no wrong answers. So, well, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot like that.
No problem. No problem.
All right. And I get that because I can't tell you how many times I had to Google like how to make a donut chart before I just like remembered how to do it like from scratch, because I don't know, I feel like it's just, unless you do something like 10 times in a row, you like read a blog, watch a video, and you're like, oh yeah, like I get it. That was easy. And then, a month and a half goes by and you're like, what was that again? What was that step? And then you go back to that same video or blog post like 14 times before you actually remember it. So I can relate. I also have a really terrible memory. Okay, let's do one more. How about, All right, so I just came across someone with the first name of Velvet, and I'm pretty sure we need to have them introduce themselves. Velvet, are you on? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was not prepared.
That's okay. It's not a test and there are no wrong answers. So
I am Velvet Shade. Yes, I promise that is my real name. I work for Lane County Behavioral Health out here in Eugene, Oregon. My role is I'm the management analyst. So basically I'm the data person. And the type of data that I analyze would be mental health services type of data, as well as medication assisted treatment types of data. So patient or client, and trying to pull together that very interesting information. I've been using Tableau probably for about 4 years. What am I good at in Tableau? I'm pretty tenacious. I would say that the thing I'm good at in Tableau is finding solutions to some pretty creative situations, whether using parameters, fixed LODs, or jumping on and doing prep to find a first location where an encounter took place. And then the features or functions I struggle with, I'd say I always want to be able to have like a fixed LOD bring in the partner dimension data with it. So if it's like a max encounter date, I want that service provider, that location, and maybe anything else specific to that location. And that's something I tend to fight with a lot. So I think that's kind of it for me.
awesome. Well, thank you, Velvet. Have you attended one of our tugs before, or is this your first time?
I jump on when I have time to a variety of different tugs, since most are virtual right now, which is actually awesome for someone out here in little old Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
So I try and jump on to yours as often as I can as well.
Awesome. That's because we're the best, right?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thanks, Velvet.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let me get rid of this box and this box. All right, so let me jump into, get out of there. Let's jump into my presentation here. And I'm gonna start with giving you guys just some context. So, most often it's tough to share things because you either have to create it solely for the purpose of sharing it, or try to, anonymize it, but oftentimes that's just not possible, especially when you work in a consulting space. That said, this opportunity to help with this project on a volunteer basis came up, and my husband would say that I volunteer my time to do way too many things like this, but I tell him to be quiet because this kind of stuff makes me feel good. So this is a police scorecard website. You can see the URL is actually staging. So this is not live yet. It's not publicly available. They haven't made a big splash, but it's being put together by a nonprofit out of California called Campaign Zero. And they have sent out thousands and thousands of public record requests to collate and normalize and aggregate data around police departments and sheriff departments across the country. So not a small feat. And so they tapped into the Tableau Ambassador and Zenmaster community for help largely with vetting this data, because there's a whole lot of things that they're doing to it to get it into the format that you see here on this website. So this is essentially, this is Minnesota, although it is nationwide, but since we're based in Minnesota, I'm showing you guys this is the Minneapolis Police Department. Kind of a hot topic these days, but this website has a formula that spits out an overall score for each department. There's a number of different factors that go into that score, and they're kind of broken out here. It's, what type of funding do they have? Where do they spend it? How many people do they serve in their community? The police violence, unsolved murders, their rates for like arresting people for low-level offenses, things of that nature. So you've got kind of the overall score, a summary table, and then they get into even more detail the further you go down. So there's a lot of different data points here, right? There's over 10,000 departments in this list, and hundreds of data points on each page. So lots and lots of data to vet, lots and lots of margin for error. So they came in and asked us to help vet this data. That was sort of the ask. So I won't talk about the project in its entirety, but I want to focus in on a couple of points. First, I want to show you guys the how I used Tableau Prep to vet the murder data specifically. And this one posed a bit of a unique challenge, because at this point in the project, they were not able to give us the underlying data set that was feeding the website for a couple of different reasons. So so we had kind of a unique challenge that there was no unique identifier. So what you see here, actually, first of all, just so I am not making the assumption that everyone here knows what Tableau Prep is. Tableau Prep is Tableau's data prep, data wrangling, visual interface. It's in the same realm as tools like Alteryx or Power BI's Power Query, those types of things. So this is essentially a desktop application that you bring your data into, you clean it, shape it, join it, do whatever you need to do with it to get it into a good place so that you can then bring it into Tableau Desktop and start building visualizations. So I have some data to vet here, and these two sources right here, I'll show you. So Tableau Prep kind of builds from left to right? You're going to start all the way over on the left-hand side with your data sources, and then you're going to do stuff with it until you get all the way over to the right, and the eventual last step is that you have some sort of an output, and a whole bunch of things happen in between. So I started with a couple of source data sets. These two here are data sets from the website itself. And these were scraped from the website using Alteryx by someone that is not me. That was Benedetta. I'm going to totally ruin her last name. It's Tagliaferri, and she works for the Information Lab over in London, also a volunteer on this project. So she and I teamed up to get this done, and she scraped this data using Alteryx. So don't ask me how to do that, because that's a whole black box for me. If there's anybody on here that is familiar with that and somebody has a question, I'm gonna lean on you for that. So scraped data from the website. She did it in 2 passes. She did kind of the first 10 states just to make sure that it was working correctly and giving us the right data. And then she did the next 41 states. So my first step here was to union them, essentially. So these 2 exact data sets, just unioning them together. So I had the same columns, the same data types. I just had more data in that format. The excuse me, the other data set that I have is the source file before any changes were made by those working for Campaign 0. So we just wanted to make sure that there was no difference between the two. Nothing was happening after they had taken it through all the processes and changes and transformations that they had done to it. So again, got my website data and then my source data. So the goal is to find any discrepancies between these two based on the murder data, and then kick out a result set that says, here's what matches and here's what doesn't. So ideally this would be pretty straightforward, and that's kind of what I thought going into it, and partly why I volunteered. And then come to find out that so the source data has this cute little ORI number, this ORI field. That is the unique identifier that is used across the country. It's every police department, sheriff's department has an ORI number that is unique to it. The website data did not have that. So I kind of, I played around with this data for probably longer than I should have. And then I decided that I was going to try to create a unique identifier in the absence of one being given to me. So let me show you how I did that. So I created this unique identifier in my website, the website data. So I'll open up this step because that's where that happens. And the naming convention that I chose for the unique identifier was the first 3 characters of the state, and then the first 3 characters of the department name, and then the first 3 numbers of their total murder count, which is in this case the homicides column. And then I had dashes in between, and I made sure that I applied all of the clean steps that you can perform in Tableau Prep. So if I were to just hover over here, click on this the horizontal ellipses, go to clean, you have all these options. You can make it uppercase, lowercase. You can remove letters, remove numbers, remove punctuation, and then all of the spaces. So I made that all uppercase. I removed all the punctuations because there were the first thing I tried to do was join these 2 tables based on department name. But there were so many variances between the department name where, they were ampersands instead of ands, and some of them had the word city in it and some of them didn't, and some of them had said, called themselves a township and others didn't. So it was a no-go. So removed all of that junk, tried to get it as pristine and unique and perfect as possible. And then I did the same thing. My little video. Did the same thing with my other data set. The one caveat was that the source data set is pre-aggregated, right? So it was before any of the aggregations that they performed to produce the numbers, the data points on the website were done. So what I needed to do was create the unique ID in 2 separate parts. So this is my aggregation step. So before the aggregation step, I came in here and created just part of that unique ID. So everything except for the total number of murders. So I've got my 3 first letters of the state, 3 first letters of the department name, and those dashes, and then did all the same cleaning steps that I had done in the previous ID column. So for example, I can go into my ID column and we'll just do Chicago. So Chicago, or so the Illinois, Chicago, right? So Illinois, Chicago, actually, just by the ID alone has 3 separate departments, right? So it's probably like the Chicago County Police, and then there's like the city police, and maybe there's like there could be a university police even in some of these instances. And you can see that they're different because that ORI number is different. And I wanted to make sure that they stayed different because the ORI is truly the unique identifier. So that's why I didn't, why I included the ORI when I aggregated these up. Otherwise, if I had not done that, I would have just had one record for Chicago, Illinois, and the total would have been these 3 values summed up together, and that wouldn't have matched. Okay. So I aggregated everything up based on ORI and the part of the unique ID that I created. And then I came in and created the rest of the ID. So I just, tacked that murder total on. So now I have a unique ID that essentially tells me that if there isn't a match for this unique ID, it means that there's an issue with the total number of murders matching. So I'll show you when I get to my join. It was essentially like anything that was excluded from my join was a potential error. Does that make sense to everyone? Or are there any questions at this point?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you keep saying the website, which website are you referring to?
That is this website right here.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant maybe like the FBI's website where it stores the official numbers.
No, and so that's where that was a source of data for them, but they also supplement that with other data as well, because, and not to get on a tangent, but different departments have different reporting requirements and different oversight or accountability. So it's easier for some departments to be like, that looks kind of bad. We're gonna like not quite report exactly what's going on here. So there are other data sources that try to keep a more accurate tab on what that is. And so they're supplemental data sources.
I have a question, Serena.
Yeah.
So do you do LODs in the Tableau prep conductor itself, or do you do it, do you do all the calculations which need to be done on Tableau desktop on Tableau prep conductor itself?
So as far as I know, you cannot do LODs inside Tableau prep. That needs to happen inside Tableau desktop, but you can create calculated fields inside Tableau prep. The LOD ones are not included in that.
Okay, you can do the simple calcs in there.
Yeah.
And you can create case statements inside Tableau prep when you're prepping the data source.
Absolutely.
All righty, thanks.
Yep.
Serena, can I just add to that? In the newest version of Tableau prep, you can do some calculations, like fixed calculations, but you can't necessarily do all of them. And you also need to make sure that, just to think about when you are bringing them into Tableau, they aren't going to be as dynamic with filters and all those sorts of things, but you can do some of those things now.
Thanks, Katrina. I thought maybe I read something about that, but I was not sure.
Yeah, and with the aggregate tool, you can kind of mock up an LOD as well. But you gotta be careful in how you do that, but you can get that same sort of functionality out of that tool.
Good question.
Got it, thanks.
Okay, so let's take a look at this join result. So I'm using a left join. Essentially, I only cared about what was on the website. So there was more data in the source file that I just, wasn't on the website, so I don't care about it. And I obviously joined them on the ID field that I created. And so we had 7,000 235 rows out of the 7,237 that matched. So that was like, to me, that was like going to be finding a needle in a haystack, trying to do that in any kind of manual fashion. So, so you can see these are the two rows. It was this Lake City Police and then the Chicago Police rows that did not match. So then I, my last step was just to kind of, clean this up. I did create another calculated field. Here's a good example of just like you were seeing is some of that basic logic, just a basic if statement to give me, to mark which ones matched and which ones were errors. So I was able to give this to the folks at Campaign Zero and say 99% of these are perfect. These two are where you need to go and investigate that. And so they could go back to the source files and look at exactly what the issue was with this particular one. There was no matching department name inside the source data, and then the Chicago Police was off by like 2 for whatever reason, and so then they get to decide, whether that's within an acceptable margin of error or if they need to fix it. All right. And then for those of you that are new to Tableau, the output, there's a couple of options that you have here. So I'm saving this as a CSV file, so I can send it really easy. You don't have to have Tableau or anything to look at it. But you also have the option to save it as a hyperfile, which is Tableau's proprietary data extract. Both of these are Tableau proprietary data extracts, but Hyper is like the more performant one. I think the newest version of Tableau Prep actually allows you to save it as a straight Excel file also. Okay, so that is how we vetted the murder data. I have another workflow that I want to kind of walk you guys through really quickly because it's got a little bit of a different angle and actually a lot more data in it. So this was an attempt to vet the low-level offenses data. Move this. I gotta move your guys' cute little faces because it's taking up my screen. Okay, so on the website, so we'll go back to the website really quick and look at the low-level data or the low-level offense data. Down. Oh, I think I missed it. So here's arrest rate for low-level offenses. I'm pretty sure there's another section that talks about it. Oh, here we go. All right, so this just gives us the total and then the per 1,000 residents number, and then the percent of arrests by type. So the website actually aggregates the source data up because the source data breaks it down by year. So I did this data vetting in 2 steps, essentially. And here was the nice thing about this go around is that both of these data sources had the ORI. So we didn't have to actually scrape the website for this data. We had to scrape a different website for this data, but the data from the police scorecard website, we were actually able to get the file itself. So, and that one did have that ORI number. So I was able to just use that as a unique identifier. So that's always a good thing when you have a true unique identifier. But so just to, I won't spend as much time on this one as I did on the other one, just to kind of walk you through this. I followed essentially the same steps, right? Like, I cleaned the data, I filtered, to just the fields that I cared about. I, aggregated it up just to make sure that, that there wasn't any, any lower level of aggregation that I needed. Cleaned it again, and then joined them together. And then I created yet again a couple of calculated fields to show me, how many rows were an exact match. So this was 8,822 rows were an exact match. 22 rows had an error, and then there were 691 that were within 1% of matching. So I created an output, but again, because this wasn't breaking it down by year, there were 691 total cities or total departments that didn't match, but that wasn't really telling me, like, okay, well, does that mean that maybe, like, 1 year is wrong? It wasn't enough targeted data to really go in and do the like to give them so they could go and fix the problem. It was too vague. So what I did in this case is I took the output, and then I brought that back in. I started a totally separate, workflow. These are not connected at all. So I brought the output from my first workflow and brought it back into another workflow. So these two files right here are actually both the output from the first workflow. This file is this file, the nationwide scorecard. That's the website data. And then this file is the same as this file. And that's the source data that we had to scrape from a totally separate website. And so I did that because I wanted to filter each of these data sets down to just the rows that were errors. So I am joining each of those data sources to the output and saying, give me only the rows that match, only the rows that that are in both of those files. So you can see that's a total of 713 out of the 9,287. Same thing with this one. I really just wanted to focus in on the rows that did not match, so I could find out exactly which years and get more data around which ones didn't match. So I did some cleaning. I had to do some pivoting in one file because of the way that the years were broken out. They were in separate columns. So there was a column for 2013 numbers, a column for 2014, and I wanted all of the values to be in one column and then have another column that told me which year that was associated with. So I could join these two data sources and they would actually work together. A little more cleaning, another aggregate step. And then this is my join, where I take the source file, the rows from the source file and the rows from the website file, and grab the ones that that match and do not match. Well, hopefully this doesn't take too long. I thought I had ran all of these flows prior to this presentation, so we wouldn't get stuck waiting, because the nationwide scorecard data file is really large. Let me see if it'll let me open up this end one here. Okay, perfect. So remember, we went from 691 within a 1% margin of error, and then I think it was like 22 that were actually showing an error. And so now we actually have more detailed data. So I can understand which years, of the data that is showing us and giving us a result of error, what are the years? So now I can see that it's Jefferson County, but it's specifically the year 2017, right? The source data says that it's 154, and the website data says that it's 157. So it's giving us a discrepancy of 3. So then I was able to kick out this output and give it to the people over at Campaign 0. And I sorted it with the biggest problem areas on the top, and said that out of these almost 10,000 rows, here are 107 that need to be looked at a little deeper because there are errors. So you can imagine how much time that saved this group from doing any kind of data vetting or user acceptance testing, things of that nature. And this probably took me, including like time to kind of familiarize myself with the data itself and get comfortable with that, and some fumbling around with the lack of a unique identifier, about maybe 8 hours total. So, any questions? I know that was kind of fast.
Great job, sir.
Thank you. It was fun, mostly because it wasn't for a client that had any right to, lean on me for deadlines. It's like, I'll get to this when I have time. So, all right. Well, if there aren't any questions, we can kick it over to Katrina, talk about Tableau certifications.
Serena, it looks like one question did come through in the chat of how would you get involved in volunteering opportunities?
That is a really great question. I didn't seek this one out. I think it's probably like so this one came to me, right? As a Tableau ambassador, they just reached out to the group and said, hey, here's this thing. Do you guys does anybody want to volunteer? And so I raised my hand and said yes. In the absence of something like that, I would just like reach out to, any nonprofits that are working in areas where you feel like you have a passion to volunteer your time and your skills with, and just say, hey, I could help you with this kind of stuff. Do you need anything? So I know I'm not a great answer, but
yeah. Hi. I was the one who posted that question in the chat box. And yeah, I mean, how would I know like which nonprofit organization is using Tableau, and if they have like such requirements?
yeah.
I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for the Tableau Community Hub. It's a sort of a gathering place for a lot of different ways that the Tableau community handles things like outreach, can point you towards community leaders, and I believe there's a whole host of links to Tableau community programs that include some things like Equity Task Force and various other user groups that might specifically focus on working with nonprofits as well. But it'd be a great place to start getting plugged in and at least find out who to talk to that might be able to connect you with somebody.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna try and share my screen. Okay, you guys see something that says Tableau certifications?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And okay, while I've got this, I want to pull up a poll And the poll question is, what Tableau certifications do you have? And I've listed out all of the ones that are currently offered and one for certified awesome, which means you use Tableau or you're starting to use Tableau and haven't done one yet, because we still think you're awesome. So I will give people a couple of minutes to answer that question. And as Serena said, we're going to be talking about Tableau certifications today. And there we go. Okay, so the agenda for today is to just give you a quick intro to myself and talk about why you should or shouldn't get certified. And then next, overview of all of the exams, what's kind of covered, what is the cost or the investment associated with it, how much time should you study for it, all those sorts of things. And then just some general study and test taking advice, and then leave some time at the end for questions. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in there. And I will make this presentation available if anyone wants to see it later, just so you can have it and have some of the links. So first, who am I? I am Katrina Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at DataKatrina. If you have any pictures of dogs, please send me pictures of dogs. I love dogs. I have 4 dogs and 3 Tableau certifications, so that's how you can remember it, 4 and 3. I am a consultant for a company in the Twin Cities area called Tesselation, and you can find them at Ask Tesselation. And these are the 3 certifications that I have, just so you know that I got a little bit of clout, or there's a little bit of oomph behind what I'm talking about today. I do have the desktop specialist, certified associate, and the certified associate consultant. And I'll talk about those later. So don't worry if you don't know what those are. So first, what does a certification do for me? Why should I get certified? First, demonstrates your understanding of Tableau. This is pretty simple, pretty basic. It helps provide a benchmark for your technical and analytical skills. Helps people understand, are you a beginner? Is it intermediate? Is it advanced? Kind of where are you on the playing field of Tableau and analytics? 2, provides name brand recognition. The certifications that I'm going to be talking about today are specifically, from Tableau. There's always a little bit more oomph behind, hey, I got the Tableau certification. They're the people that obviously know the content the best because they're the creators of the content. It can help you break into the industry. This is something that is really significant to me, because this is kind of how one of the reasons why I took the first certification exam was I kind of had a non-traditional or somewhat abnormal path into data analytics. And I wanted to be able to demonstrate the fact that, yes, I do know how to use Tableau, not just, Excel, or not just believing, like, trust me, future employer, I know what I'm saying. And so this can be a really great way to help provide justification for experience, or in lieu of the practical resume experience.
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
Sorry. So with your point of getting certified to enter into the industry, so I am a business objects developer. I have experience of 10 years, but I have also worked on Tableau for a couple of years in my recent project. However, I got certified in Tableau desktop specialist. So is that enough to pursue my career in Tableau, or is it mandatory to get certified in Tableau associate?
Yep, that's a really great question. I'll answer pretty quickly and then hopefully dive into a little more details later. It depends. It's really tricky. It depends on what job opportunities are out there for you, what you want to do with Tableau versus the previous experience you have, whether you're going from something that's maybe a little related to Tableau, like let's say you have experience in Power BI and want to transition to Tableau, or if you're going from, I was a dentist and now I want to work in Tableau, like those are all going to be pieces to the puzzle to kind of help you understand what levels of certification you need, what levels of experience you might need. So kind of depends, but hopefully I'll answer a little bit more later. And then if I don't, feel free to reach out to me and I can expound upon some of the answers.
But I think, Katrina, as per my experiences, I think Tableau certified associate exam is actually important one, because that's, and specialist is very, very easy. So I think the second exam is important for the companies, and then the breakthrough is easier, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point too, of understanding the difficulty for each certification can help you understand how much experience is this maybe gonna make up for, or what is this really going to bring to the table that maybe the experience doesn't already. So yep, definitely agree with your point of not just should I get certified, but which certification should I take? And that's kind of again something else I'll talk about a little bit later, and happy to expound upon later if the rest of the presentation doesn't answer your questions.
Yeah, and just to put it into perspective, I'm looking at the poll results right now, and 82% of us have no certifications, including myself. So yep. It's not like a must-have. There are other ways to succeed here. But
yes, definitely. Okay. So the next point that I had was distinguish yourself from others. So this can be a good way to kind of help employers maybe look at your resume a little bit longer than someone else's resume, as well as help distinguish yourself from other coworkers. Maybe there's something that, you're on a big team and there's 20 of you using Tableau, but, I'm I went out and got the certification. Maybe that's going to bring a little bit more like I said, to your questions or answers, or a little more clout to your information. Kind of along those lines, it shows willingness to learn. A lot of the things that I look for when I am interviewing people is curiosity. I want to work with people who are curious, and getting certifications is a way to kind of help show that you are curious. I went out and I'm learning these new things. I'm also sticking through with this program, and I'm achieving something at the end. Pretty obvious, again, helps you learn. There's lots of things on the certification exams that I didn't necessarily have practical world application with, and this kind of forced me to maybe dive a little bit more into maps and really think about, how do maps work? I've never needed to know that before, but now I do need to know it. And so it's a great way to help you kind of expand maybe a little bit of the things that you have worked on. Next, provide motivation and confidence. So again, having a goal, something to work towards can always be helpful, working towards a motivation, of you maybe have purchased the exam and you say, all right, I'm going to take this exam in 6 weeks. That gives me a deadline. It gives me something to work towards, instead of just this, oh, maybe one day it would be great to do these kinds of things. And second, once you pass, you've got that confidence. You've said, I can achieve these things. I can demonstrate my skill set in these areas. And maybe that will give you kind of the boost you need to say, yeah, I can move to a different job. Maybe I can move to a different industry, or those types of things. And next, it meets continuing education requirements. There are some jobs, some employers out there that really emphasize continuing education. I mean, personally, I think everyone should. I think everyone, most of the people that are on this call, you probably love learning. That's why you're here. That's why you're taking time out of your day to learn something new about Tableau. And this certification can be a great way to help kind of, make sure that you are staying up to date with the programs, and saying, oh, like what was the newest release, or what was the features that were added in this release? What can those be used for? And again, giving you some application to learn and practice those. So next, I want to talk about, what does a certification not do for me? And this is kind of something that has kind of been brought up a little bit, but I just want to reiterate the fact that it does not demonstrate your understanding of Tableau. And what I mean by that is that it provides a base point. It provides something to jump off of, but there's so many things that you can do in Tableau that saying you have a certification doesn't always mean that you understand how or why to use the different things in Tableau. It says something like, I know that you know how to make a bar chart, but I'm not sure if I know when to use a bar chart versus a line chart, or a histogram, or all those sorts of things. So it can be a really great way, but it's not the only way. And as Serena said before, it's not the only thing that you need in order to be successful. It's not something that is a requirement. There are other things out there that you can do. Excuse me. And again, in my opinion, the best way to demonstrate your abilities in Tableau is to use Tableau Public or some sort of portfolio housing thing. And this is a really great way, especially for future employers, to say, look at the cool things that I've done. Look at how I can demonstrate how I understand how and when to use a table, how and when to use a bar chart, and all those sorts of things. Again, doesn't guarantee you a job. As we've said before, job hunting is hard, and that certifications can be a great way to supplement the lack of experience, but it doesn't always replace it. Sometimes employers are looking maybe for a little more senior roles, or maybe they're looking for something that is not necessarily demonstrated by a certificate. So again, it's great, but it's not a guarantee. This one it's not applicable outside of Tableau. So again, because it is name brand, if you think about the inverse of that, it's a little obvious, but obviously you aren't it doesn't demonstrate your abilities in other BI tools like Power BI. It doesn't necessarily demonstrate data literacy in some ways. It doesn't demonstrate SQL, all of those things that are parts of what make a great analyst. This is, again, just trying to emphasize the point that this is just a part of the piece of the puzzle. Okay, so let's say that you've gone through all of that and you've decided that you do want to take a test. Next question is, which exam should you take? So there are 3 different categories of the product exams. So I've kind of booked them off. The first ones are dealing with Tableau Desktop, there's Tableau Server, and then there's the Tableau Partner exams. I'm going to kind of just ignore the partner exams because they most likely won't be applicable to the vast majority of you. But if anyone out there wants to chat about them, again, feel free to reach out to me and I can chat about those. So the Tableau Desktop ones, they have 3 separate ones. There's the Specialist, Associate, and the Professional. And they, again, kind of go in that order of easiest to difficult, most difficult. Same with the Tableau Server, you've got 2 in there, and you've got Associate, Professional, which again, Associate's a little bit more fundamental, a little bit easier than the Professional one. Again, I just wanted to call out the fact that the Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server ones are open book. I'm not quite sure when this changed, because I took one that was closed book, and now the one I most recently took was open book. So just keep that in mind, that if you didn't know that, now you know. Now they're open book. And of course, again, just marking that the Tableau Partner one is not an open book. So little bummed on that. So diving into a little more details on the exams themselves, the product exam, the Desktop Specialist. So this is the first level. I'm going to spend the most time talking about this one and the next one, because I do think that, as said before, these are probably the most applicable ones to the majority of the people on this call. So this one is $100, fairly low, entry level. Tableau suggests you have 3 months experience with it. There's no expiration date on it. The time allotment is 60 minutes. You have 30 questions and you have to get a passing score of 70%. This one is multiple choice as well. And then I've listed the content details below. Again, I'll make note that all of these details about what exactly is on the test is available on their website, so highly recommend going and checking those out. But first, the content, connecting and preparing data. So this is kind of like What would happen with an outer join? What about a left join? What's a blend? What's a union? When would you use one over the other? Creating basic charts. This is going to be, all of the show me or build for me options that are kind of on the top right. Very simple bar, line, table, graphics, those sorts of things. Organize data and filters. This is understanding, how do I make a group? How do I make a set? When would I use one over the other? Hierarchies. How do I apply a filter? How would I make the filter be select all or apply, click to apply, those sorts of things. Apply analytics to worksheet. This is going to be starting to think about, all right, we have some data on there. How can we interact with it? What can we do to maybe add some analysis to it? So this could be, sorting top to bottom, largest to smallest, some basic table calculations. What is a trend line? How would I add one? What is a parameter? How could I switch between different options? Sharing insights. This is kind of a little bit more about design features. So when should I use color? How would I make custom shapes? How would I change the text size or the font on this? Next is going to be create, modify, and share a dashboard. So again, pretty simple. Once I put things on a dashboard, how do I go about putting things on a dashboard? How would I use containers? How would I make simple filter actions? If I click to filter this one, how is it going to filter everything else on the dashboard? How do I save my dashboard? How do I publish it to the server? And then lastly is just kind of understanding some Tableau concepts. And these are things that are maybe a little bit more unique to Tableau as opposed to other tools. So this is dimension versus measure, discrete versus continuous, blue pill versus green pill kind of stuff. Aggregation is really important to understand here. So hot tip of making sure you understand when to use some like SUM, parenthesis profit versus just profit, and what those two things will do different. How they'll be different. Next, the desktop associate. So this is the second level one. Again, cost $250. Suggested experience is 5 months. Expiration, this one is 2 years. So you got a window, but it's not necessarily too bad. Time a little bit longer, 120 minutes. Relatively same number of questions, 36. Passing score is slightly higher of 75. This one did give a percentage breakdown for the content. So it is really similar, but just kind of like the next level for a lot of things of, so data connections. How do I not just connect to Excel? How do I connect to the Tableau server? How would I blend my data? How would I pivot my data? How would I kind of manipulate it before using it? Organizing and simplifying data. How do I, again, filter, sort? What is the order of operations for filtering? How would I build groups and sets and hierarchies and make those dynamic? Field and chart types. This is going to be, when you think about the more complex charts, and so if you think about multiple measures or multiple elements on a chart, some dual access charts, this is kind of where you're starting to get into how would you do that? How would you synchronize an axis? Calculations, again, getting more advanced, thinking about those LOD calculations. How would I make a logical statement? If this, then that kind of calculation. How can I manipulate dates, or how can I create a date into something that I can use on a line chart? Mapping. This is where you start seeing mapping of how do I build a map? How do I filter a map? What is the map going to show me? How would I make groups on a map? Analytics. This is, again, how do I add more information to it? This is going to be reference lines, forecasting, box plots. Not only how do I add those to the dashboards, but how do I interpret them? So make sure that you understand both features of how to do it as well as how to interpret it. Dashboards, again, pretty similar. What's best practices? How do we use containers? How would a dashboard look on a different object or a different view? This was one that kind of threw me for a loop the first time I took it, because I'd never made a dashboard for a mobile device before. So I had to, really think about it. next is going to be, like publishing and sharing, all those options. Yes. So next one, for the last one for the desktop exams is going to be the professional one. So this one is $600. So as you can see, it is much more of an investment. And just one comment I'll make of, if you want to think about difficulty a little bit, kind of look at the price tag. You see you've got 150, or 100, 250, 600. Tableau is telling you a little bit kind of how they value it, and so you can maybe take an interpretation from there. Again, suggested experiences is a year or a year plus. Because it's more difficult, you get a little bit longer of a window of 3 years. Time is 180 minutes, and this one is different. This is not necessarily multiple choice. This is a hands-on written explanations type of test, and it is also done by a committee. It's graded by a committee, so they want to understand, do you understand good concept or good data literacy concepts? Taken right from a quote from their thing is they are trying to test the ability to familiarize yourself and gather insights from unknown data. So again, just trying to iterate the point that this is not necessarily how do I technically use the program, but this is adding more, how would I choose different things? Why would I choose the things that I did? So these questions are going to be formatted more like, here is something that is a not great visual. How would you make it better? How would you convert this map into a bar chart? How would you convert this bar chart into a map? All sorts of things. There definitely are some more technical, stronger skill sets, and this is again going to be combining those concepts. So how would you combine a parameter and a set to make a dynamic top 5, 10, 15 filter? How would you calculate a customer's lifetime value or average sales since their first purchase? And then last is going to be about storytelling. And excuse me, again, this is looking at data storytelling. How does it all fit together? Not just what happened, but why is it happening? How can you use two different visualizations to work together to tell a similar story? So that's going to wrap up the desktop. I'm going to quickly talk about the server associate ones. I personally have not taken these, so a lot of this content is going to be just from the website. But again, keep in mind that the server only has 2 certifications, so you've got kind of an entry and then a more advanced one. So the certified associate is $250, suggested experience is 6 months, expiration 2 years. You've got 90 minutes to take it, 80 questions, and the passing score is 75%. So the content, preparation, what some of the questions from the study guide are going to be, what is the user experience? How would they navigate? What are the software and hardware requirements? Installation configuration, how would you perform the installation? How would you configure security options? Administration, how do you schedule refreshes? How do you use the log files? How do you interpret that information? Troubleshooting could be something like, how would you reset a password? Migration and upgrade, how do you upgrade? What is the backwards compatibility? Next, the server professional. This one seems really hefty. It is $800. Suggested experience is 9 months. It lasts for 3 years, and the exam time is 7 hours. That seems crazy to me, to take a test for 7 hours for this. Like, this is for people who are very serious about servers. And again, this is like the professional one for desktop, where it is hands-on. It's a written response. Passing score is 4 to 6 weeks. Again, going to call out that this exam is currently only offered in person. I'm guessing during Tableau, during the conference, or maybe on site, but due to COVID and safety concerns, they are not doing that right now. So not even available, but you can still study for it if you would like to. So again, this is going to be everything from the previous exam, but just in more detail. Some quotes from the study guide are going to be, you will be presented with a network use scenario and asked to design a system that will provide the best performance and functionality for users. So thinking about the whole picture of kind of what is going on. Okay, so now that we've gone over kind of an overview of them, some really quick study advice. Like I said before, all of these exams have an accompanying PDF where it gives a description of the content that's going to be on there, and sometimes it gives a percentage breakdown of what the content is. They also provide some exam practice questions, and so obviously read those. That is what Tableau is telling you to study, and make sure you can complete those practice questions. Give it a shot, see how long it takes you to figure out some of those questions, see how familiar you are with it. The Ultrix exam has a pretty cool thing where it gives you like each category, and then it asks you to rank like 1 to 3, what's your familiarity with it. And if your number is like over a certain number because you've answered 3 that you're super familiar and everything, then of course you're going to pass. And so kind of think about it that way of, what am I really familiar with? What am I really confident in? What am I not confident in? And then just get practical experience. That's the best way to do that. Makeover Monday, workout Wednesday. There was one question that was on one of my exams, and the only reason why I knew how to solve it was because I had done a workout Wednesday last year about it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is somewhere back here, and there was something like this. And then obviously there's lots of courses out there. You got the Tableau e-learning courses. They do have specific recommendations on those PDFs for which courses to take for those. You've got lots of other courses out there, Coursera, Udemy, Data Coach, all sorts of things. And then just general advice, kind of this is like test taking advice. So make sure that you plan for the setup. This kind of caught me off guard the first time I took it, of there's your allotted time, and then there's like a little bit before that of, let me connect to the proctored exam. Don't think I mentioned that, sorry, they are all proctored exams right now. So you have to make sure that you are on time, because you get stuck in a queue, and so you could be sitting there for a little bit. So just give yourself plenty of time. Also make sure you show up on time so that you aren't late to your appointment and inadvertently miss your window or something like that. During the test, there is the option to flag or to mark questions. This is a really great feature. If you blatantly don't know the answer, or if you just think you might be confused by the question, or you're like, well, maybe this is the answer, just mark it. You can always come back to it. And kind of along those lines, some of the tests you will have access to a Tableau instance. And so, when you're answering the questions, when you're building the graph that it's looking for, make a new tab, label the tab as question 6. And then if you remembered that you need to flag this question, color it as like a red or a yellow or something like that, to kind of give yourself an indication of, hey, I've got like 15 red tabs. I need to like speed up between these questions, or I know that this question I was mostly certain on, so I'm going to leave it towards the end, or those sorts of things. Double check formulas in Tableau. If you have access to Tableau, you've got the option to look at the syntax of Tableau. Some of the questions are about, how would you write a question, or how would you write a formula? And honestly, I don't remember all of those off the top of my head. Sometimes I get confused between, this is how I'd write it in Ultrix versus this is how I'd write it in Tableau. And so just, it's there, use it. It's a feature to just double check what you already know. Next point is check, double check, and triple check the wording of the questions, because this is something that, in my opinion, maybe Tableau could do a better job about wording some of the questions. I thought some of the questions were worded in funky ways or confusing ways. Sometimes it was like, what's the best option here? And a lot of like, sometimes it depends. There's lots of other things to think about, or my mind, I want to consider other options that, aren't necessarily available. There was one question that I was really struggling with to understand, and I just kept reading it, and I was like, I don't understand it. Let me build the map. Let me do it. And then I marked that question as read, and I came back to it at the end of the test. And then just by rereading it without having just spent the last 10 minutes thinking about it, something clicked, and then it made sense. Along those lines, don't spend too much time on one question. It can be kind of tempting to make sure, like, at least for me, I tend to like overthink things, and I might get too far ahead of myself in saying, just again, overthinking it. So if you've hit that wall, or you can kind of tell that, I've spent a lot of time on this question, again, mark it, come back to it. It's better to answer all of the questions than to leave one blank. Know the version that you're being tested on. Again, this is on that PDF. It's really important to understand, because sometimes Tableau has different features in there. And so like right now they're testing on, I believe it's 2020.1. And when I was about to take my test, I was like, oh shoot, do I need to know stuff about noodles? I don't know noodles. Let me come back to that. Let me cram real quick. And then I was like, oh wait, don't have to know it. It's not tested on there. So just make sure you understand what is on the test is really that. And last point is be cautious about open book. Just because it's open book doesn't mean that everyone is going to pass it. A lot of the questions are, word like from math class in junior high or college, or where the answer options are numbers. And so this could be 25%, 35%, 45%, and obviously you can't Google those questions. So you have to be able to understand what in this question can I Google, as well as don't get too lost in people's blogs about it. You don't always have to read the entire blog or read the entire help article from Tableau in order to understand what you need to understand in order to answer the question. So just kind of take that with a grain of salt. I'm really happy they're open book, because life is open book generally, but again, just take it with a grain of salt. So in summary, we've kind of talked about reasons to get certified, reasons why maybe certification isn't great for you, talked in an overview about each of the tests. So should you get certified? Probably. It's probably going to help you. It's probably going to be beneficial, especially those first two levels, like we talked about earlier, of the entry and maybe that little bit more mid-level advanced ones. Those are going to cover a lot of the content that employers and people are going to need in their skill set, or the skill sets they're going to need in their jobs. And so those can be really great ways to again demonstrate it. And at the end of the day, you're going to learn something new, and isn't that what this is all about? So that is what I have. Again, any questions? I think I saw some come through the chat. I'll open it up real quick. But again, if you have any questions outside of this, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter.
There was one question about practice tests.
Yep.
Katrina.
I'm sorry, can you read it to me? I'm trying to find how to find the chat.
Just, I think the question is just, are there good practice tests to practice with?
Yeah, so Tableau doesn't have full official practice tests to take, but there are some of the, especially like Coursera and Udemy. So when you purchase some of those, they do have some practice tests to take there. And so those can be, again, really good ways to figure out what you are good at, maybe what you thought you were good at, but maybe aren't so good at, or what you thought you were terrible at, but maybe you're great at. So those can be really great gauges.
And in the there's a URL I mentioned in chat where you can kind of pick the test, and it'll give you like an exam guide, and those do include some sample questions as well.
Yeah.
So definitely worth taking a look at.
Yep. There was another question that asks if the cost for the test also includes the learning modules to support it, and I believe the answer is no. It does not.
Yeah, they do not. Tableau right now is running a a promo for the first level and the first couple of courses. I think it's like 40% off or something. I can find that and put it in the chat, but no, they are not included.
Are they still offering any of their on-demand learning for free, or did they stop doing that?
I think you're talking about the e-learning, right?
Yeah.
I think that free period elapsed, but I'd have to double check that.
Yeah.
But the free training videos on their website have always been really, really helpful, really good quality. I used those prior to my exam both times, and it really helped.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of like free and pretty cheap stuff out there. Even if you look on like Udemy or Coursera, I mean, you can find classes that are like $20 to take. So
yeah. And there's a lot of good resources in the community too, from people who have taken these exams that have written blog posts and stuff like that about it too. That Server Professional has quite a quite a clout around it of being not an easy test to take. So
yeah, well, I'm not in any danger of taking that one. So
okay, Carrie, you have a question?
Yep, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am a graduate student in Ontario. I'm looking to get into Tableau. I was just wondering what steps I can take to better like get a role, because I feel like it's definitely been tricky, especially during these COVID times.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any experience, so that's like especially during these times, it's been really tough. So I was just wondering like what I can do to better prepare for it.
Mm-hmm. Are you taking any courses right now that is touching on it, or is this outside of the scope of that?
What do you mean, like at college?
Mean, like, yeah, in college, right? Like
So I actually graduated. I did data analytics actually.
Okay. Do you? I know that even just like getting over the hurdle of getting a Tableau, like a licensed copy of Tableau. Maybe someone knows a little bit more about this than I do, but with a school email address, I think you can.
I already do have it.
So step one, check that box. After that, so we actually a couple years ago put together a list of like really great beginner resources that I'm happy to kind of dust off and share with you. There's probably some like fresher, newer stuff nowadays, but at least in terms of like beginner resources, there's probably still some good stuff there. I guess my other advice would be to find some data that you care about and then just start playing around with it and just see what you can do. I think that's, for me, that was a big thing. It was like, using the Superstore data was okay, but, caring and being familiar with the data that you're working with goes a long way. What would other people suggest?
I would certainly suggest leveraging Tableau Public, right? If you're looking to get your name out there or get some visibility that you can put into an employer's hands, 2 or 3 or 10 vises out on Tableau Public, even if they are roughshod, can demonstrate to a potential employer that you at least know what you're talking about, right? That you at least know how to build a bar chart and might get you past that hurdle, especially during COVID when nobody wants to interview anybody, and or roles are remote and it's a lot harder to assess. So it's free space. It's a free tool. It's not quite as robust as Tableau Desktop, but it's out there.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Like, I've done some work that I really want to show off, but a lot of it's like our proprietary data. Do you have any suggestions or tips on how do you, like, what's a quick or a best way to not anonymize it, but make it so you can share it on public Tableau?
I'm probably not the best to speak on this, but what I would say is can you find a similar data set like Superstore that you can almost swap out, right? So replacing a data source in Tableau is an okay thing. I don't know. I mean, it's extra work, right? There's no good anonymizer tool that I know of. You can probably, fudge something up in Alteryx if you extract your data and push it through there and pump it back out. But I don't know. Does anybody know of any data scrubbing or anonymizing tools?
Nope. So back when the world was, when it was okay to be like in person with people, I have in the past just like screenshotted some stuff and like blurred out where logos and numbers and stuff just to, and then handed somebody a piece of paper and been like, yeah, I built that. I can't say much about it or can't tell you who it was for or whatever, but this is what I'm capable of. So, but in the digital space, yeah, I don't have any good answers for you.
What kind of data are you talking about?
Yeah, so I guess like one of the things that I was thinking is that I have like let's say it's like a runner, like for like for races and stuff like that, and then trying to find like something that's similar to running, and then maybe change like all like the headers or those sorts of things. And I guess I don't know the data, how it flows underneath Tableau public, so that when somebody downloads the workbook, what can they all see and have access to? So that's why I was a little, I guess maybe not a tool, but just, has anyone done something like that? And are there any concerns if you just change all the headers?
There's a couple tools that I've used in the past for like generating fake data that I've used sometimes if I want to anonymize something but keep the same basic structure. The one that I use the most often is called Mockaroo, MOCKAROO.com. Got all sorts of different like formats for fields that you can choose. And you have some options in terms of whether you want to randomize them, whether you want a certain percentage of them to come through null, that kind of thing. There's been a lot of really good conversation in the Tableau community around how people can anonymize their data to post to the public forums, like the community forums. If they're working on a work problem, but they can't share that work data, it's a way for them to replicate what they might be working with there. So I would check the community forums as well. But yeah, Mockaroo is the one that I've usually used the most in the past. It's fun. You can put together like, all right, I want 1,000 rows of like fake car model names, and like just see what it comes up with. And you can auto generate like addresses and stuff like that if you want to start experimenting with mapping and things like that too. So it's a bookmark of mine.
Thanks.
Just swap it out with Brad's swimmer stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
I started tracking my golf game thanks to you and your swimming tracking, so thanks.
No, I've seen people at the Tableau conference present with their companies. They've gone there to present, and they're presenting on a dashboard they made for their company, and they've just gone ahead and just I don't know how they got there, but they just dummied all the names and the data up. And they changed it all around just to demonstrate the concepts of the charts, and it seemed to work well. Obviously they're not going to be able to draw the same insights from the charts. They're just showing how they made them. And also to your earlier point about how to find a role in Tableau, years ago, I once hired someone, I was in a finance role, and I hired someone who was, was at the same company. It was an internal hire, but they had more of a clerical role in our accounts payables team. And they took that role because they couldn't get a job in the finance team. And this was a way into the company. And then they just, their plan all along was after, a year, 2 years of work there to try to transfer internally, because every medium or big company will always hire internally. If there's an internal candidate, there's always a preference. So, you know, whatever city you're in, if there's a short list of big companies or medium-sized companies that are using Tableau, you know, getting into really any department there and then trying to maybe setting up a coffee or a Zoom with someone in the analytics just to learn about what they do. And then when they have an opening and you've been there for a year or two, then that becomes a really a much easier transition, because then they're hiring an internal candidate who brings the skills and knowledge from that other department, and that's kind of a nice thing to have. So just a plan B for you. I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. I also want to ask, like, what other tools do you guys recommend? I know SQL is something that I've been told I need to learn, but I was just wondering what other tools I need to be knowledgeable of.
I would say it kind of depends on what kind of role you're looking for. If what draws you to Tableau is the ability to tell a story and to communicate insights, then, you know, having a solid understanding of SQL might help you triage and fix problems in the back end. But it might not be entirely relevant to your ability to communicate insight. Something like, and SQL is handy because it's been around forever and it's pretty ubiquitous. But for me, I've found that outside of Tableau, just knowing how to use data is just kind of a broader picture, because or a broader skill, because that way, if I'm having to do analysis in SQL Server, if I'm having to do analysis in Tableau, if I'm having to do analysis in Power BI or Excel or anything else, if I know how to use data and I'm showing curiosity and how to speak the language of all these different tools, that's the value that I offer, right? Like, I understand how to speak with data. And so whatever tool you throw at me, I'm going to figure out how to leverage that, because I have the foundation that supports that, right? Whether that's SQL, whether that's, you know, business objects, whether that's, you know, anything else, showing a curiosity to try and get as many different tools under your belt or experience with them is only going to help you. So it's hard to say, like, this is the tool you absolutely need to know, because you can take a career in data in 30 different directions, you know?
Yeah, I generally say is, you know, find something that can gather or manipulate the data. So like Vin said, SQL or Python or Alteryx, even Power BI has, you know, that option, Tableau Prep that we just showed, and something to visualize the data. And so again, Tableau, Power BI, any of those things, but like Vin said, it's totally open. And I know that that can be really great and really overwhelming all at the same time. So in my opinion, I think it's best if you're just starting out, try a bunch of different things, try free trials for things, see if there's something that like really clicks with you, that you really understand. And, you know, because it might not be until you've been exposed to that new tool or that new feature or something that really, like I said, clicks for you.
Okay.
It's probably not going to be Domo, but yeah, pretty much anything else besides that, you'll be all right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are there any other questions for anyone in the group? We've got a good group on.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for looking at my swim dashboard from 2 months ago. Someone had suggested that I could switch to a Google Sheets as my data source, and then I could update it automatically, and I did that. So thanks for the suggestion. I didn't know you could automatically update on Tableau Public, and it was really nice to be able to do that now. So thanks.
Nice. If you've got a link for that, Brad, why don't you drop it in the chat? I'd love to check it out.
Sure. It's updating once a day now, so you can keep tracking me every day.
We'll set a data-driven alert on it so we can all like email you like, hey, why haven't you made it yet today? No, that's awesome. I love learning about the different personal projects that people do. we've got a really awesome community of talent here. So
I also want to ask, how do I find companies who are working with Tableau specifically for work?
I know at one point there was a job listing from Tableau. Vince, do you remember? I thought that there was maybe one that was in the UK, but remember that? I'm trying to think of other things that aren't just like LinkedIn and like the very typical, or maybe things that you might have thought of before. So I think there was that.
There was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was on Tableau's blog lately. Let me see if I can pull it up here. But yeah, somebody was maintaining a list of known jobs using Tableau. I believe they were organizing it by location as well. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat. I don't know how
I was going to say another idea is it gives you a great excuse to network using LinkedIn or another resource where you reach out to someone who has analytics or business intelligence, their job title, like pick your city of where you are, and you can just go down the list of the biggest companies in town and just find somebody and say, hey, I'm looking to learn about what tools your company is using within the analytics space. And yeah, some people won't respond, but I bet you'll get a couple Zoom calls out of it, and then maybe they might have friends at other companies in town in analytics, and they can help you, because then you're not really asking for a job, you're asking for information, and then people are much more receptive. Mm-hmm. And that's a good way to sort of get a lay of the land. I mean, there's only going to be a handful of companies that are going to be Fortune 500, and then then there's a bunch more beyond that. But this gives you a good excuse to kind of reach out to people. And then who knows, maybe one of those people will be hiring at the moment.
Yeah, one other thing I might suggest, just kind of as a Tableau ambassador in the social media branch, I would say give Twitter a try. The Twitter community for Tableau is really, really active, and we're real chatty. And if you use the hashtag DataFam, that's a good way to get on a lot of people's lists that track the Tableau community there. And I see posts quite often from people who are either looking for new opportunities or looking to break into a career using Tableau. And you never know who's going to know somebody who's going to know somebody. And I've seen that path work for a lot of folks. And we got people from all over the world on Twitter using that DataFam hashtag. So yeah, check it out.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, unless anyone has any other questions or comments, I think we missed the part about best thing I learned or help. I forgot what it's called. Tableau doctor. Yeah. Group therapy. Thank you. So if anyone has anything, feel free to shout it out real quick. If not, I think we might call it a day. We are over our typical time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, and yes, this will be recorded. This recording will be posted. There we go. So thanks for coming, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. Yeah. Almost weekend, I guess.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.